One night in 2009, a 23-year-old man named Chris, along with his date, walked into a McDonald's in London, England. The following day, Chris had a very important job interview in the morning. This dinner in McDonald's was going to be the last part of the date. This McDonald's was dirty, it was packed with people, not exactly a romantic location for a date, but this was all Chris could afford. They hopped in line and they ordered their food and their drinks. After receiving them, began looking for tables. So they began walking around and eventually they would find a table where there was one guy sitting there just eating his meal, and Chris very politely asked this guy, "Hey, would you mind if we sat here too?" And the guy just kind of looked at him and he was like, "Sure, go ahead." Chris realizes the guy they're sitting with is no longer just looking at his food. He stopped looking at his food and he's just staring across the table at Chris's date. And like the way he's looking at the date does not seem friendly. Chris looks at this guy and he's like, "What's going on?" And this guy just begins insulting Chris's date. He says to Chris's date, "You're an ugly pig." Chris is like, "I can't just sit here." And so Chris, who had actually never been in a fight in his whole life, stood up and he was like, "Hey man, get up." But as soon as he did that, Chris realized he had made a horrible mistake. Chris, he was only about 5'8" tall. And this guy, when he stood up, towered over Chris. But Chris, he just kind of winds up and hits him once. But then this huge guy just proceeds to beat the living crap out of Chris. After Chris had been battered by this total jerk, the guy kind of wandered off and was not held to account in any way. Chris looked at his date and she was totally rattled by it, and Chris was super embarrassed at this point. They left the McDonald's and they both went to their respective homes, and Chris just went to bed. And then the next morning, when Chris got up early because he has this big job interview, went into the bathroom and he saw he had this enormous black eye. He wondered what they would think of him if he showed up looking like this ruffian. But he was like, "You know what? This is the biggest opportunity I've ever had. I just gotta go in there, try to be confident, and don't let the black eye define the outcome." Later that morning, Chris goes into the building, he's having his interview, and he can tell they're all staring at his black eye, but nobody brought it up. By the end of it, he had no idea what the interviewers thought of him. He thanked them for the opportunity, and he left thinking, "I'm not gonna get the job." Not long after this interview, Chris got some shocking news. He had gotten the job, and it actually might have been because of his black eye. This job interview was actually an audition for a starring role in an upcoming TV show. And the character that Chris was auditioning for was this guy who's gotten into fights. Chris rolls in here looking like a guy who gets into fights, and they're thinking, "Oh my goodness, he can hit his lines, he's got the charisma, and he's even a ruffian himself. He fits the character perfectly. He's our guy." Chris got cast, and this TV show that he starred in became one of the most popular TV shows in the entire world. And so Chris went from who could barely afford a McDonald's to being this amazing actor who was getting nominated for Golden Globe Awards and was an A-list star. Today, Chris is better known by his stage name, Kit Harington. And the starring role that he landed that changed his life was the role of Jon Snow in